President Bola Tinubu has called upon the governors of all 36 states to collaborate and deliver effective governance for the Nigerian people. At the inauguration of the National Economic Council at the President of Villa, President Tinubu emphasized the immense task of economic growth. The inaugural meeting, which is now underway and chaired by Vice President Kashim Shettima, has over 30 state governors in attendance. However, their deputies represented Borno and Ondo states during the inaugural meeting. Others present include George Akume, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Femi Gbajabiamila, the Chief of Staff, Mele Kyari, the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Oluwatoyin Madeyin, the Acting Accountant General of the Federation, and Fola Shodun Shonubi, who is the Acting Governor of the Central Bank.
It is a great pleasure for me that I join you today for the inauguration of this administration's National Economic Council. The National Economic Council was established by the provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 1999 as amended, as one of the executive bodies of the federal government. The NEC has the mandate to advise the President concerning the economic affairs of the Federation and, in particular, on appropriate measures for the coordination of the economic plans and programs of government, ministries, departments, and agencies. Your Excellency, it is worthy of note that the monthly meeting of NEC, chaired by the Vice President, have remained the official economic platform for robust dialogue among the federal government, the 36 state governors, the Central Bank of Nigeria, and other key stakeholders. In my inaugural speech of May 29, year 2003, I expressed this administration's commitment to improving the lives of Nigerians in a manner that nurtures our humanity, encourages compassion towards one another, and duly reward our collective effort to resolve the social ills that seek to divide us.
President Bola Tinubu there. Well, for more on this, I'm joined in the studio by the economist and senior partner and at SPM Professionals, Paul Alaje. And in our Lagos studio, we have Dr. Boniface Chieza, who's a top-notch economist and business development consultant. Well, gentlemen, good to see you both. And quickly, let's start with you, Boniface Chieza, who is live in Lagos. You watched the president and you saw this. You have written copiously on the need for such a team in the past to be more vibrant. First, give us a sense of what it's always been like before now.
Well, I think that National Economic Council is a known structure of governance in the Federation. But what tends to happen is that besides the meetings, the states go back and we don't hear much, from the states. Even when they deliver their annual budgets, it's never discussed on the papers. Even for a state as central, as critical, as dominant as Lagos State, you never get its budget discussed. So I think that you don't clap with one hand. So if you want Nigeria to develop, then we don't just concentrate at the center like we've done for quite some time. There's a need for us to make sure that all parts of this country begin to live up to their responsibilities. This is why in the past, if you look at the revenue allocation formula, sharing and so on and so forth, whereby the various sub-national units are encouraged to earn their income and pay a tax to the center, I think we better be thinking of going back to that, because the present system we have has fostered some sort of laziness on the part of the various subunits of the federation. So I think that we might have to get a way, find a way to get the states, to pull up themselves by their bootstraps. And that's very urgent and it's very important.
Okay, Dr. Chieza, I'll come back to you. Let me come back to the studio here. Paul, you've heard him. And that's one thing that a lot of people were not too excited about, that back in the day, they go back to their states, and you never get to hear any conversation from the governors, because this is very, very important. But again, speak to us on the importance of having these governors, because we're a federation, a federating unit, and all coming together on the same page, saying that this is what we thought should be our focus. But according to Dr. Chieza, it's never been discussed.
Well, I think there will be a difference in this administration, and I'll tell you why I think so. The 36 state governors plus the FCT minister, before now, have had a number of challenges regarding revenue and how some of them how to pay salaries. I'm sure you are not surprised that some of the governors are not even able to pay 30,000 minimum wage because they are not earning enough. When you look at the IGR for most of the states, it's highly insufficient. What this president have done when he says subsidy is gone is that he has automatically increased the share of revenue to all the state governors by that simple statement. What you saw was that NNPC adjusted price. And NNPC is the biggest player. That's the person that imports PMS as at that time for everybody. So who are you to say you are a big marketer if you will not adjust your price? Everybody just, follow suit with what NNPC has done. Because government understood that if NNPC is importing 100% or over 90% as of that time, and NNPC is taking a decision, order needs to queue. The implication is this. The burden that government is carrying, 3.3 trillion, approximately 7 trillion. Don't worry, I'm conscious about the math. It's supposed to be 6.6. But because even when you saw when President Tinubu made an announcement, NNPC said the monies that's supposed to use to subsidize in June is not even there anymore. So approximately 7 trillion is what government has taken off. Not just for the federal government, but for the federation. So when subsidy payment is off, which of course affects federal government, or the subnational, even local government, the money is now available to be distributed among 3 tiers of government: the federal, the states, and the local government. Now, President Tinubu, from his speech, is hoping that governors will govern. When you say govern, you see, the essence of government, protection of life and property, making life better for the people. This is what I think the president should do. Immediately, because these governors are busy, they have commissioners to deal with, they have state issues to deal with, and that is huge on its own. We must have an economic team, not economic structure, as provided by the Constitution. Remember that during President Buhari, we spoke over and over and over. When the President Buhari administration was going to end, then they started putting economists together to do magic. Unfortunately, whether the economists were there or not, the damage, a lot of damage has been done to the economy. So the quality of advice that government would have received, unlike you could see the action President Tinubu is from day one, even before he appoints minister. And subsidy removal met everybody unprepared. But he said, well, I'm going to go ahead with it because I have a target. He's saying the same to governor. Now, your revenue flows is certainly going to increase, perhaps when we're sharing for June, end of June, or by July, when government is sharing more revenue, we come to you because the under-recovery NNPC has been doing has ended. The sole license to NNPC has ended. So for us to get report, there must be key performance indicator. So whatever you don't plan, whatever you don't set target for, you are not going to see result. Some banks are succeeding because the CEO understood that he needs to multiply himself on all other members of the organization. Right, some are Paul. Failing because they refuse to do the same.
I'll come back to you, Paul. Let me quickly bring in Dr. Chieza. Dr. Chieza, listening to Paul, one of the key things that will resonate with Nigerians will be the president, and who is not new to making revenue. Specifically, recall what had happened then when he served as governor. Speak to us on some of the key things Paul also raised. He spoke about, the key KPIs. He also spoke about peer review mechanism. One would have thought that back in the day, the governors forum would have helped these governors also put heads together to see where they are dropping the ball and latch on to some kind of expertise from other governor brothers and fix what they need to fix in their respective states. Dr. Chieza.
Well, I think that one of the things that we needed to do, to put the state governors on their toes, we need for them to come. This meeting mustn't just be a talk shop. They should come to the meetings, prepared to make presentations and receive comments, and people will learn from what is happening in other states of the Federation and so on and so forth. I think that the challenge, take for something like budget preparation. You might be surprised that in some states, the issue of preparing the budget is not taken as seriously as we take it at the center. You look at all the innovations, we've had at the center. The Buhari administration came and brought us back to the calendar year budget cycle, which wasn't there before. Before, we were staggered. We didn't know when the budget was going to end and when it was going to start. But one of the things you have to give to the outgone administration was they came and reconnected us to what it should be. So we harmonized the budget calendar to the budget year, to the annual calendar. Now, what goes on in the states, for instance, I don't think anybody is aware. I think that this forum should be used as a vehicle, as a channel, as an opportunity, to get the states, get them, peer review pressure, let them get together, not just to come and have a talk shop, to come and do presentations. And when there are critical issues, so this is National, Economic Council, they should go and have it discussed. Take for instance, we just moved the subsidy. Ideally, it's good the timing of the president. I think we should commend him. But I think that is something that, for instance, should have been taken to this council to be discussed. We're talking of palliatives, for instance, now. When you talk of palliatives for Nigerians, how many Nigerians are civil servants? So even if you increase your salaries, and as we hear is being proposed, how many people is that going to touch? So I think that you benefit when you get people, you challenge them, you get together and you brainstorm. And at the end of the day, you find that you take decisions that are richer and that would take Nigeria forward.
Before I come back to Paul, I would like to stay with you for a bit and ask the kind of conversation you expect to hear from the Economic Council with the governors.
Well, I know that, for instance, when we have some special schemes and so on, that it's discussed, So first of all, it's ventilated, So when we have some programs, we have some plans, economic plans, they take it to the forum and it's ventilated, it's discussed, and then you get an input. But I think that what I'm concerned about, that people should go and we have an issue, that people should be challenged, to come and make presentations. And before the meeting, there should be an agenda circulated so that people will come. They've thought through what's going to be it's going to be discussed, and then they come with their points of view, and then you ventilate it and you make it a forum where everybody's encouraged, to have an input. So at the end of the day, you will take a decision that is richer. It's not unheard of. We take decisions and we find that there are lacunas here and there because it's not been thought through properly.
All right, okay, Paul, listening to Dr. Chieza, it shows one thing, that governance is serious business. And but if you go back to what he's highlighted, it hasn't actually shown the kind of seriousness Nigerians would have loved to see. But again, he also spoke about budget preparation. Speak to us on how prepared some of these states are, because Nigerians averagely want to talk about the center all of the time. The states, the federating units, are as important, if not more important, than the center.
Well, I think apart from Lagos State and 2 other states, plus the FCT, that we have information about their budgeting, it's really very difficult to even get information. What you see most of the time is a budget summary. you must physically go to those states before you would have access to some of the things they are decided. What many people may not know, it's easy to say President Buhari was the problem or President Tinubu is now the problem. What they should understand is that we have a national and subnational. The subnational are as potent as national in most cases. Now, President Tinubu is talking about GDP growth rate of about 6%. If he has made policy that will make 6% a reality, and most states, they say what their capacity is to make 1% a reality, what we do is to find the average. Remember, President Buhari brought economic recovery and growth plan. Instead of the plan becoming a success, it became a failure of some sort. And I say that with all sense of responsibility. Why I say that? Because of the 36 states, only 6 states plus the FCT fully adopted economic recovery and growth plan. President Buhari adopted it fully. 6 states adopted it with the FCT. 30/6. What do you expect? That's a larger proportion of our entity as a nation that have not adopted what the president, even members of his own party, have not accepted what he said. So coming to what the governor should be doing and the fact that we have not seen it as business, I think we must underscore something. We must build policy. We had it, I think, 2000 thereabouts, where you see fiscal authority, monetary authority, they were doing what they were supposed to do at a time. We have economic documents called needs, and we cascade that down, we brought that down to seed, from seed to lead. So local government authority knew what they're supposed to do. That is why Nigeria had the kind of growth we experienced, because coming from military background, many of us had forgotten. We used to have a Abacha stove, those days. What happened in the early 2000s? Some of those memories were completely erased, because state governors were they were integral part. Look at a person like El-Rufai, who was the FCT minister, to change the face of FCT. Yes, he did his best. I'm not saying FCT suddenly became a Dubai of some sort. No, but from where he met FCT and where he took FCT to, there was a major difference. Tough decisions, difficult decisions, just as we are saying, with the new president. We need leaders who will make tough decisions, and they mustn't be insensitive to the need of the people. I don't have time to talk about what could be the fallout, because that is another conversation entirely, which we must, of course, remember that no matter how tough we want to be, you cannot tow a gate, you cannot tow a road without providing an alternative for people to pass, because it will also in itself become an illegality of some sort. So it's important for us to have those who want to go into business of government. And I tell people, I was in this studio when election was coming, and I said, you see, if you like, don't take it as serious, because that person will decide partially your fate, your future, your destiny for the next 4 years. Now we have chosen. We have to stick to our choices as a people, at the state level, at the local level, at the federal level, whosoever we have decided to lead us, whether they are economic savvy or otherwise, whether they are wise or otherwise, whatever they do, we have to stay by it, because as a matter of fact, in a number of months to come, a number of years to come, we will see the results in what is happening to our bank accounts. We will see the result in a month you are paying in taxes. You will see the result whether a job is available for you or not. You see the result whether you are hungry or you are not. You will see the result whether your quality of life is improving. You will see the result whether inflation is eating you deep or you are becoming better for whatever is happening to you at the moment.
And Dr. Chieza, politics aside, politics over, but it seems that every state and every government without economists like yourselves, well, is bound to fail now. Speak to us on what we should be seeing in the days to come as we wind down.
Well, I think, Suleiman, that most of the states, they have somebody in charge of the economy. Either they have a commissioner or they have an advisor to the governor who's in charge of the economy. So they do have. But I think that what's important is that there has to be the consciousness. Sometimes you have these things. They are there and they are like sinecures, so they are there and then, not much is being done. So I think there's a need for us, to evolve some strategy whereby, they'll be called to task. For instance, this National Economic Council should be a forum where states that have some problems, they have some difficulties with solving, be it maybe infrastructure, and so on, that could bring it to the table there and benefit, get an input. And so on and so forth. I think that also, when the states are looking for funding, they want to take external loans and so on and so forth, that should be like a clearinghouse Well, I don't know how it's done now. Maybe it's done with the Minister of Finance. But that, for me, should be a forum. So if you're going to you want to attract funds overseas and so on, which is going to be guaranteed by the federal government, and then you bring it to the table. And then it's discussed. And everybody has an opportunity, first of all, to be sensitized as to what is going on. And then also to contribute, what knowledge they have in that respect. That way, we are optimizing, the structure we have on ground.
And Dr. Chieza, it would seem as if the Senate President has already set an agenda because, in his inaugural speech, he also spoke about having other sources of income, where he also mentioned natural resources. How can the state, when they meet in such a monthly meeting with the Vice President, have that conversation to see how they can get back to their representatives in the National Assembly to see how they can tweak the laws and ensure that it is activated for such states to key into and make more money for its people?
Well, that's why in my opening comments I did say that in fact we should, if you look at the revenue allocation formula we had just post-independence, we need to get back to that. That was altered and changed by the military. We get to people, it's because there's an incentive there. People need to be incentivized. So you get the money and you pay tax, you pay to the center. I want to talk of restructuring the economy. And you talk of revenue, allocation and so on. So we thought that, it's one of the things that we need to look at. Because you see, this Nigerian economy is vast. And we are optimizing, we are punching, below our weight. Just because, besides the challenges we have at the center, various subnational units within the Federation are not playing up to expectation. So we have to find a way, to make sure that that goes on. Like I said in my opening comments, they present budgets and so on. We have 36 states in the Federation. You never see it discussed anywhere. You don't go find people come on radio to discuss it. But forever we have federal government to produce, and we are discussing it. We're even asking for interim progress reports on the budget, and it's been presented, but nobody seems to be copying. I don't know how. If you have a body like this, I think for me it's the perfect setting for such practices to be encouraged.
And Paul, quickly here, I know you likely have to comment on this, because it would seem as if, the governors seem to be prepared, because if you ran an election, you ran a campaign, it meant one thing, that you were prepared for the moment. So how can that preparation be brought to bear? Because Dr. Chieza has painted a very grim picture, which is the truth. You hardly hear any kind of conversation from the states. So how can we change the narrative so that it changes from just 6 states while activating some of these key economic processes to every state doing the same, and even the councils? Well,
I think the fourth arm of government, which is the media, has a major role to play. If you go to most states, there are local stations, there are state-based that are actually doing this. I am able to know this because I'm involved not just on national station like yours, there are also local stations that are discussing this. The challenge is that what they are discussing in Sokoto, you may not hear it in Lagos. What they are discussing in Lagos, you may not hear it in Abuja. But what unifies all of us is what is happening at the national having a national conversation. And that is why I said, if we have a committee or a group, a think tank of some sort that can connect the subnational and the federal together, then we have a lot of things to do. But I also would like to make a comment about revenue, a revenue pool. I can tell you that today, the least state that is not losing money is losing about 8 trillion naira. In monies, they are either not collecting or they are not interested in collecting. The least.
At least losing.
They're losing 8
trillion.
No, 8 billion naira. I beg your pardon. 8 billion naira, not trillion. 8 billion naira. That is the least that is not collecting. And the one that should collect the most is losing approximately 124 billion naira. Now, these are revenues that you don't need new energy to get. These are revenues that is available. In fact, if governors talk to themselves, and they start talking about revenue, there are some that are collecting some kind of revenue and others are not. Again, by blocking loopholes within the revenue collection system, some states will suddenly become richer. It is easier to come to Abuja and have some level of revenue. Whether you like it or not, President Tinubu, when he was governor in Lagos State, he went through the litmus test when revenue was not available for him, but he was able to put the best of his best that were available at that time together to ensure that Lagos State was still able to do something. And because they had tough history together, you saw the bond. That's why perhaps a lot of people make such things regarding him. But here is it. We have states from the northeast to northwest, even in north central, not too far from us, to all the states in the south. They have revenue windows they are not collecting from several sectors. And I'm of the opinion that this state governor should start looking at it. But importantly, I don't know if I can just wrap up on this. Importantly, the president has set agenda for the entire federation, federal, state, and local government. The benchmark of growth should be 6%. What will state government do to ensure that by building roads, by supporting with infrastructure, the president has signed a bill that has to do with power. Are they going to be looking at licensing? Is the place attractive enough? What is it that they have that is not bringing enough enterprises to their state? What do they need to do? Do they need to partner with some multinational organization that can help boost the performance of the state so that we will not just be talking about 2.31% GDP growth rate, which is lower than population growth rate, by the way, but we can say how to triple this growth rate by the end of the year or next year and perhaps get into double-digit growth rate as a country.
And let's close with you, Dr. Chieza. I wouldn't let you go without talking about the special advisors that the president has named. And perhaps you should tell us what excites you there, because I know you know some of the key people there, specifically Wale Edun, who's now the special advisor on monetary policies, and a few others. What kind of Nigeria are we likely to see when you picture this?
Well, I think that you're spot on there. I just sent Wale a congratulatory message. I don't know whether he saw it, but I think that, I told him we had high expectations, but I think that it's okay to be an advisor. Well, I know Wale very well, going back to when we were in banking, IBTC, I was at UPA, and so we go back so many years. The others are known persons, but a few fellows here we don't know. But I think that being a personal advisor, to a large extent, it depends on how your principal, reacts. You give an advice and you cannot dictate. If you go beyond giving an advice, then you are trying to dictate. And that's why it's good that the presidents and those you are going to advise are given the free hand, to appoint those, they have some confidence in, they've known for some time, and then they would want to work with. Because then when you work as an advisor, you are as effective to the extent that you have a rapport, with your principal. But I think that started well. What's going to be important as we go forward is that we'll want to see the caliber of persons we are going to appoint as ministers. I think that if we're going to compensate some people who have played a role in bringing about this government, we should know what positions to put them. There's some critical positions where you shouldn't play with. And I think that Nigeria is in a hurry. We can't afford to begin to play games like we did in the past. And one is quite...
Yeah, but again, I think the soundbite there from Dr. Boniface Chieza is that there are some critical positions you don't have to play games with. At this point, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Boniface Chieza. Many thanks for your time. And of course, Paul Alaje, many thanks for coming on the show.